I just finished Hogwarts Legacy on my PS5, which means it's time to sit down and give my full, spoiler-free review of the game. My name is James, and I started this channel simply because I love video games. If that sounds like you, please subscribe to my channel so that you can see more videos just like this one. I played Hogwarts Legacy for 60 hours over 15 days, which puts me right at about 4 hours a day. As I said, I played the game on PS5, and I did play the game at the normal difficulty setting, but I did actually lower the difficulty at a couple points in the game, and as far as I can tell, the difficulty affects the enemy health, the parry time, and also the difficulty catching animals. I had a really fun time with the game. That's how I played 60 hours in 2 weeks. But let's get started with the positives. The number one positive for me was Hogwarts Castle. They did a really great job of crafting this castle, making it feel familiar to people who have seen the movies or read the books, but also still making it mysterious and intriguing to make you want to go and explore. In pretty much every room and every area in the castle, there's little pieces of lore for you to find and read about, and there's paintings that you can interact with on the walls, there's students walking around, and overall, the entire castle just feels alive. I'm not even a huge Harry Potter fan, so I can only imagine that somebody who is obsessed with the wizarding world would probably even get that much more enjoyment out of just being able to run around the castle in this game. The next positive for me is combat. The combat consists of a mix of basic attacks and then your more powerful spells. There's different kinds of spells. There's red spells that are strictly attacks. There's purple spells that will usually move objects or your enemies in some way, and then there's yellow spells, which are mostly meant to hinder enemies. You can have 4 different layouts of spells at a time, so I liked to have a combat layout where I would have a red spell, a purple spell, and a yellow spell all like readily available. But then I also had one for like bosses and stuff. Your red spells are your heavy attacks, so I had one layout that was just all heavy attacks. I had another layout that I liked that I used for stealth, but I felt like the combat had some depth to it, both in how you were able to prepare for combat, and then also once you're in combat, how you are able to dispatch enemies. The next positive for me is that I thought the game did a pretty good job of diversifying the different types of missions that you would have to go on. Even the 4 main keeper trials in the game are all vastly different from each other. If I did do a whole bunch of story missions in a row, I didn't feel like I was doing the same thing over and over again, which I think is a plus. And then the last big positive for me is the appearance system. Once you unlock an appearance for an item, you can wear that with any gear. So you always have the ability to wear the best gear and make it look however you want, which I really like. The only downside with the appearance system is that since you are finding and collecting so much gear, it did get a little bit annoying. Change your gear and then immediately have to go in and change the way it looks to make it look the way that you like. I would have liked for there to be an option where you can like lock your appearance so that no matter how much you change your gear, it won't change to the way that you look, but I don't really think that's a big deal. All right, it's time to move into the mixed section. These are things that are not necessarily negative. These are things that are not necessarily positive or negative, but I still wanted to make sure they get mentioned in this review. The first one is actually also related to gear, that you are finding so much gear, which is cool because it lets you customize your gear and constantly upgrade your gear. However, your inventory is constantly filling up. It's really annoying when you're in the middle of a dungeon and you try to open a chest and it says like, oh, your inventory is full. So then you have to like go into your inventory and then destroy something and then open the chest again. Fortunately, gear is incredibly easy to sell, that I think you can sell any piece of gear at pretty much any vendor. It's more so of the frustration of just thinking like, okay, I'm about to go out on a mission. I need to make sure and sell all my extra gear. I need to make sure to clear up as much inventory as I can. And then the added frustration of when you forget to do that and getting to a dungeon and then realize it's all full. The next mixed for me is that going to classes, which you do as part of the main story, are kind of boring. In the beginning, you go to like herbology and you learn how to grow plants and like where to get seeds and stuff, which I think is beneficial. And then you do the same thing with like potions, and Defense Against the Dark Arts introduces you to combat. But later on in the game, you'll be given an objective like go to this class, and you go to the class and it's just a cutscene. And so it doesn't have you like do anything or interact with anything, and it gets kind of boring. Another mixed one is collectibles. They mostly did a pretty good job with the collectibles. Where it gets mixed for me is that only some of the collectibles are noted on the map. And that's okay. For example, the Daedalian keys, which are not listed on the map, I was able to find all of those just by exploring Hogwarts. However, another one, like the demiguise statues, which you're introduced to much later in the game, probably after you've already done a lot of exploring, I wasn't able to find all of those on my own. Other things related to collectibles, I don't like that the field guide pages are not viewable on the map. Even if there was something where you went to a specific NPC and they were like, hey, for 100 gold, I'll tell you where you can find an undiscovered field guide page. Even if you had to do that over and over again, I feel like that would be better than like nothing. Also, when you factor in that there's like hundreds of the field guide pages, and so if you haven't found them, you have to go online and look at a list of all of them and then just kind of follow the list and be like, okay, I found that one. Next one. Okay, I found that one. Let's run to the next one. And it just gets kind of old. Speaking of things getting old, there are 95 Merlin trials, and I don't think 95 is too big of a number. However, I do think it's notable that you get a reward for completing 50 Merlin trials, but then you don't get anything once you've done all of them, except for a trophy. But there's no, like, in-game reward. For the collectibles, I decided it wasn't going to be worth my time to go and find all of them, especially the field guide pages, because I didn't think playing another 20 hours reading a guide and then running to locations in that guide, I just didn't think it sounded fun. The next mixed for me is the controls. I think that the controls when you're walking around and exploring, and even when you're in combat, feel really good. But there's two specific areas that the controls got a little bit clunky to me. One of them was that when you're in the heat of combat and you're trying to switch between casting spells and parrying spells, those are a lot of the same buttons. These are a lot of the same buttons being used over and over again, so it can get kind of tricky. Also, I wasn't a huge fan of the flight controls. For when you're on your broom, you control your left and right direction with the left stick, but your like up and down direction with the right stick. And I warmed up to it, but the first couple times that I got on the broom, I could not get it to work the way I wanted it to. The next mixed for me is that lockpicking gets old. So in the game, you learn the classic spell Alohomora, and you actually learn 3 levels of the same spell. And as you go around Hogwarts, there are level 1 locks, level 2 locks, and level 3 locks. As far as I can tell, there's no difference between the 3 different level locks. I think what I would have liked was that When you learn Alohomora level 1, it lets you unlock those basic locks. And then when you learn Alohomora level 2, maybe that would let you obviously unlock the level 2 locks. But then maybe when you go up to a level 1 lock and cast the spell, it just opens automatically and you don't actually have to like do the lockpicking minigame. I think I would have liked for it to have gone that way because lockpicking got very old. The stealth is another mixed one for me. There's stealth in the story that's forced on you. There's some early on in the story, and then there's some probably 65% of the way through the story. And those ones I didn't like because they take away certain abilities. They make you kind of go down this one linear path, and it just feels like they're kind of padding the game a little bit. There's also optional stealth. You learn some spells and stuff that let you kind of conceal yourself, and you can go up to a camp and start taking out people like one by one, like stealth takedowns and stuff, which doesn't really make sense in the world of Harry Potter, but it's still super fun. And so that part of the stealth I enjoyed a lot. The last couple mix for me are that the dialogue is kind of clunky and that characters are often doing like weird motions in cutscenes. With the clunky dialogue, I'm not sure if it's like only certain characters or if across the board, if it got better as the game went on or if I just like warmed up to it. But definitely in the beginning of the game, a lot of the side characters feel very clunky, that they don't really sound like they're real people talking to another real person. And then as far as weird motions in cutscenes, for some reason, a lot of the cutscenes are these wide shots, these like full body shots of your characters. Whenever a character starts talking, they'll do some motion, like something like with their arms, or like they'll like do a little bow or something, and it just feels weird because that's not how people in real life interact. Before I give my negatives, if you haven't yet, please go ahead and subscribe to my channel. I'm trying to hit 300 subscribers by the end of this year. So that does bring us to the negatives. Fortunately, most of my negatives are pretty small, but there's a lot of them. So first thing is, I think this first group is performance related. That I didn't notice that, I only noticed this in Hogwarts, and it's when you're in a busy area and you run through it really quickly to a door to another busy area, instead of just opening automatically, sometimes the door will have this little like loading icon on it, I guess telling you that like the next room's not ready. I didn't think this was that big of a deal, but it was probably the most noticeable issue that I had. At one point, I unlocked a door and it opened and it clipped through me, and my character's model got stuck in the door, which that one was kind of funny. And then I did also get soft locked 3 different times. One time I got stuck on top of a wheelbarrow, but underneath a low ceiling in Hogsmeade. One time in a cave, I jumped down into an area that I don't think you were supposed to be able to get into, and I got stuck and I couldn't get out, and so I had to reload a save. And then at one point, actually, in the main story, a character and I were supposed to step through a portal together, but they had some dialogue that they were supposed to say, like, before they did that. But instead of listening to the dialogue, I just walked up and stepped through the portal, and they like didn't come with me. And I walked around for a little while and I tried like interacting with stuff, and I ended up just having like reload a save. None of those were that big of issues, but all of them were noticeable. The next couple negatives for me are actually related to the like role-playing elements. The game gives you options to choose dialogue, but a lot of the dialogue options feel pretty meaningless. That if you do something for someone, you're given the option to say like yes, or like yes for a fee, or no, which those are all those don't really do much. And especially in the main story, you're given these options that present themselves as very significant options, but the game will kind of then it seems like the game will then kind of twist it around, that it's like this option, it's like you go this way and I go this way, but then we all kind of end up back here. And then also related to like role playing stuff, I think your character is too good at everything. So part of the story is that your character is starting at Hogwarts as a 5th year. So this is a 15-year-old wizard or witch or wizard who has never done any magic before, and all of a sudden is really good at herbology and really good at potions and really good at defense against the dark arts and really good at animal handling and really good at literally everything. I think I would have liked a system where either it lets you choose or it randomizes for you, that like this skill is going to be really hard for you and then this skill is going to be easy for you, and then you would also have like the added conversational element of that, like what my character is good at might not be what like your character is good at. And I just feel like it would make it it would help it kind of add some intrigue there. And then my last two negatives are both kind of related to the difficulty and kind of related to the level scaling. And these are the most significant negatives that when I think about replaying the game, these are the things I'm going to think about. The first one is that I got trapped in a boss battle. Not trapped in that like the game like bugged out or anything, but trapped in that I got to a boss battle and I had kind of low health, and I didn't have any health potions or anything, and so the boss would kill me in like 1 or 2 hits. And because it's a significant section of the game, you can't leave that area for anything. So I didn't have health potions. I didn't have a way to get more health potions. So my options were then to reload a save from like an hour before to then get more health potions before I get to this spot, or drop the difficulty, or just power through it. I did end up powering through it, but I imagine that if that happened to me, it would happen to other people as well. And then last, I found the level scaling, especially in the main story, to be pretty bad. The final mission has a recommended level of 24, and I was level 37. So I went into the final mission thinking, like, okay, recommended level 24, I'm level 37. I'll probably not have a difficult time with this because I'm 13 levels above the recommended level. But I get to the final boss and it's level 39. It scaled the level so much that it was a higher level than me, which is also annoying because in a Hogwarts Legacy, when enemies are higher level than you, you do like 10% damage to them, which made the final boss like 10 times longer than it needed to be. And so I found that to be pretty annoying too. I always feel like the reward for being over leveled should be like getting through tasks very easily, but I think it's obvious that the makers of Hogwarts Legacy didn't feel that way. Guys, that's all that I have to say about Hogwarts Legacy. In the comment section, please let me know what you think of this game. And until next time, the best way to keep up with me is on Twitter and on Instagram at James_Solar, and on Blue Sky at jamessolar.bsky.social. Thanks, guys.